Okay. Excellent. Good morning. In the immortal words of Kevin Sorbo, let's bring it. So, my name is Adil Shanea. I'm a developer advocate on the Google Plus team, and I'd like to welcome you to the very first Google Plus session anybody has ever done at Google I/O. And let's begin. So as you can see, I wear this leather jacket a lot. I'm Adil Shanea. I'm a developer advocate on Google Plus. I'm based in the London office. And this.
And I am Julie Farrago. I'm an engineering manager on Google Plus, and I'm based in the Cambridge office. And I'm going to talk to you a bit about all of the places that you go when you use Google Plus. So many of you, I believe, use Google Plus today. How many of you actually use Google Plus today? Awesome, good, fantastic. And if you use Google Plus, you're probably very familiar with the stream and have hopefully been privy to a lot of really excellent conversations that happen on the stream. What we find is that when conversations start on the stream, that people engage with them very deeply. I think you just saw some stats about how our active users are spending 12 minutes a day on the stream. The comment threads are rich. People +1 posts, they reshare them. There's a lot of engagement that happens there. I work on a team that builds tools for publishers. And when we saw all of this incredibly rich engagement on the stream, one thing that we wanted to do is help highlight that engagement and help you as publishers and as site owners understand it more. So have any of you used Ripples? Awesome. So if you haven't used Ripples, I highly recommend checking it out. Ripples is a data visualization tool that our team built in partnership with a data visualization team in research to help you better understand what happens when your posts go viral. So if a URL, if a link from your site gets shared, if a post that you create on your Plus page gets reshared many, many times, then you can actually go and view the ripple effect, the viral effect of that post on Google Plus. By using this tool, you can see who the key influencers are. So this post right here is a post that the PM that I work with, Rick Borovoy, made about one of the launches that we had earlier in the year, the share button. And you can see that after he posted, he was able to see, okay, well, turns out that a lot of the Google pages helped his post actually go viral. So having those connections helped him reach a broader audience. In terms of audience, I think you were all at the keynote, but we've just announced that we have 250 million upgraded Google Plus users. We're really excited about this number and about this number of users because, as many of you know, the product is only a year old. And if you would ask me what I had expected a year ago, I don't think that I would have thought of this at all. So we're really excited about where we are. And I am particularly excited about all of you using your amazing content to engage all of these users even more. Another great place where we go when you use Google Plus is actually onto Google Search. So before I worked on Google Plus, I actually worked on Google Image Search. And one of the big things that I worked on while there with a number of other engineers was working on getting your friends' images into Google Image Search. And at the same time, we were doing something similar on web search. This was back in late 2009, early 2010. When Google Plus started, we found a much, much better channel to be able to enable you as publishers to get social recommendations for your content onto search. So today, if Ade, for example, shares a great place that I should go in San Francisco to me on Google Plus, or if he +1s that place, or if he follows its Plus page, then when I search for places to go in San Francisco, or charities to work with or to volunteer for at San Francisco, then I can see his social annotation, his endorsement on that search result. The reason why we believe that this is incredibly meaningful, hopefully you do as well, is because Google Search is many people's portal onto the web. It is the way that they discover. And so by taking social recommendations off of just the social destination site and bringing it to places like search, we believe it really dramatically increases people's ability to discover the best content across the web. And then one of the great things about being on Google Search is of course, again, that we just announced, we have 150 million 30-day actives and 75 million one-day actives. So the opportunity to reach people is overwhelming. It's wonderful. But we're not just on search. Social annotations also affect ads. So earlier this week, I was actually trying to find a place to stay near a small amusement park called Storyland in New Hampshire. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it's a great place for little kids. We're heading up there over July 4th weekend. And I did a search on Google or on Google for Storyland places to stay, and I actually saw a social endorsement from one of my friends. I didn't look any further. I went, I booked the hotel, and that's where we're staying. What we found is that social annotations result in a 5 to 10% increase in CTR on ads. So the impact there, again, we believe is quite marked and very, very real. Likewise, not just on ads, but my team has also been doing a fair amount of investigation into what the impact is on search. And again, we've seen that from your friends, from close social ties, there is a marked impact on CTR when a friend endorses a search result. So again, by being on the stream, by being in search, by being in ads, we believe that that social sharing and social annotations can be a great tool for discovery. Finally, I'm really excited about this. I don't know if any of you guys saw this yesterday, but my team was working late nights, long weekends, a couple all-nighters to try and launch recommendations in the +1 button. So as of today, if you're part of the platform preview group, you can now hover over a +1 button on any site and see recommendations for related, popular, similar content on that same site. What we're trying to do with this is make +1 and sharing and following all of these different tools that we have a discovery tool, not just on Google, but also where it actually lives, so on your site. And one of the big reasons why we're doing this is because Google Plus plugins get many billions of impressions a day. So with those billions of impressions, we want to convert that into more traffic for you, more discovery for our users, and just a better experience overall. And so with that, I'm going to hand off to Ade, who will tell you about how to get there.
Hello. Can I just check? Who here in this room is a member of the platform preview group? So about a third of you. Great. So today I'm going to talk to you about the Google Plus platform. But first, I'd like to introduce you to my family. Anybody want to guess which of those people is me? Clue, it's 30-something years old. So I'm the baby in this photo. And one of the interesting things about the job I do and my family is that my family are very, very sharp, but they're not technical. So when they heard I had a job at Google as a developer advocate, they wanted to know, what exactly does that mean? And then they asked a question which my manager sometimes asks, what exactly do you do here? Now, my manager is currently unable to be here through an illness, so I don't have to explain to him, thankfully. But with my family, I say I work on the Google Plus platform. And because they're not technical, their response is usually, what's one of those? And I say, because I'm an engineer, a platform is a combination of plugins and APIs and SDKs. And then they get more confused. And I say, okay, I can explain what a platform is. Think of it this way. We're Google, and there are lots of people out there who've got websites, who've got web applications, native applications, and they would like Google to help them solve hard problems. They'd like Google to do the heavy lifting that they can build on top of, and then use that to build better businesses. And then they sort of say, wait a minute, how's this kind of thing going to work? And I say, well, think about it this way. If we can build tools, plugins to help people, we can actually make a difference to those developers. And since you're more technical than my family, what you're going to have by the end of this session is you'll have an understanding of how our plugins, our platform can drive traffic to your site, how we can make sure that that traffic, those people, when they get to your site, are more engaged. I'm going to talk to you about how you can increase the click-through rate, how many people click on your links in search, your links in the stream, by modifying the snippets for your pages. And I'm hopefully going to tell you how you can increase the amount of times your content is reshared on Google+. Small secret, cat pictures. Now, the Google Plus platform is made up of a lot of tools. And what you've seen over the last year is we've been slowly adding to that toolbox. And this session, I'm going to basically give you a broad overview and then point you to other sessions that are going to be much deeper, much more detailed about these tools and how you can use them. Now, when I first started putting together these slides, I was going to give you lots of examples based on the well-known site example.com. However, Google Plus is a social layer. It's social. Social is about people, the connections between them. So it seems a bit weird to have an abstract example like that. So I switched to my own site. It's a superb little website. Now, the problem with anybody who builds this site is you build your site and you hope they will come. How do they find you? Well, a little bit of hope, a little bit of prayer, or this little site. You may have heard of it. It's called google.com. Now, what happens is somebody hears of me, perhaps they'll see my hat go past in the street, and they say, who was that man in the hat? They type my name into search, and they get the classic Google search results. Now, for those of you who don't know what a snippet is, it's the little box of text that appears below the link. This is how Google is telling you, this page, this link is about this. This is what the person searching is going to use to make their decision. Now, google.com is fantastic. And we asked ourselves, how can we improve on that? How do you upgrade that experience? Well, the way you upgrade the experience of using google.com, the way you give users better results, more relevant results, the way you give publishers more traffic, more engagement, is you give publishers more control over their search results. You give them more power to control the snippet. This is the snippet that turns up for my own website, oshina.com. It's fantastic. But as you'll see, the same snippet appears in the web search results and in a Google Plus stream. It shows my face, it shows my name, it shows a catchy little phrase that I came up with a long time ago. The way we give people like you and me control over the snippet is with a technology called Schema.org. Who here has not heard of Schema.org? Okay, great. This is for you. Schema.org is a community-driven project where Google, Bing, Yahoo, Yandex, and the community got together and said, what if we could mark up web pages in a way that showed you the entities inside the pages? That took us from a web of pages with text in them to a web of entities where you understood that a page was about a person or a place or a review or a recipe. And if you could do that in some way that didn't involve breaking the web, that didn't involve rewriting the web. So you want some method where you can embed a few extra invisible attributes into your web page, and now search engines and other tools can know what the page is about. They don't have to guess anymore. When we talk about an entity, which can be a person, a place, a review, and this is an extensible ontology, so you can add many, many more entity types. It's 4 basic things. The type. Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it a review? The name. Obviously, if it's a person, the name is the name. If it's a book, it's a title. An image. So for me, of course, it's a photo of me. And of course, you need a description. So those are the 4 things you need to describe an entity within Google. Now, we've already been doing a lot of work in web search around rich snippets, and we extend the rich snippets testing tool to also support Schema.org. And what this means is you can point a URL in there, and we'll show you not just the rich snippets in there, not just the microformats, but a Schema.org markup in there, and show you the entities in that web page. The other thing we got when we spoke to people was they said, it's not enough just to have rich snippets testing. I need help in creating my web page in the beginning. So we built this snippet config tool. As you can see, it has a drop-down where you can pick the most common entity types, put in your title or name, the URL, the description, and we'll show you what the markup will look like. For example, on this rather nice little website, you can see this is a web page. Now, as a human, you look at that and you say, this is a page about a person. For a search engine, that's hard. What you want is some way to mark up the HTML. So if you look at the red sections, what I've done is I've basically said that I want to say this whole page, so that from the body element downwards to the closing body element, is about a person. And then I want to say the name of the person. So as you can see, just by adding those red sections, I've said this page is about an entity. I've said the description of the entity, I've given the image, and now you know what the page is about. So now I have a website. Google and other search engines know what this website is about, and it's rather cool. But how are people going to connect to this? They go to the website and they say, well, nothing's changed. They go back, nothing's changed. What you need is a mechanism where they can choose to follow a Google Plus page, perhaps, and be notified when new things happen. So with Google Plus pages, you can create a connection with the people who visit your website and use that to tell them when interesting things happen. Here's an example of something me and some friends built. It's about developer experience. Who here has heard of developer experience? Excellent. Our marketing campaign is working brilliantly. It's just me and a couple of friends, so we don't exactly have a massive budget. We do have a Google Plus page, however, and on that we post links to the new articles we write, we post links to events we attend. Whenever one of us writes something interesting about developer experience, we put links here. And as you can see, we've got a pretty big following for something done by 3 people in their spare time. And the beauty of this is that this is something that lets those people know when we do something new and interesting. Now, the thing about Google Plus pages is that for me and my 2 friends, who you may have heard of, Pamela Fox, Michael Mamoff, we all want to manage the page, but we don't want to share a password. So Google Plus lets multiple people manage one page. At the same time, Google Plus lets one person manage multiple pages. As you can see there, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 Google Plus pages. The last one is particularly funny. Who here has a Google Plus page? Keep your hands up. Okay. Who here has 2? 4? 6? Who has 5? Gerwin wins. So the nice thing about Google Plus is you can create many, many pages for interesting things, interesting concepts, brands, books, your blog, whatever. And you can use this to build a community around that idea. So we have a community around developer experience. There's a much smaller community around my book. It's really good. There's an incredibly small community around my blog. And of course, there's my You've Never Heard of Google Plus page, which is where I make mocking comments about my colleagues when they've never heard of Richard Dawkins or Neil Gaiman, and I post a link so they can learn. Speaking of my colleagues, if you want to learn more about how you connect with the people who visit your page, your website, you realize something pretty important. The best way to connect with people is face-to-face, or as we say, face-to-face-to-face. And if you're interested in that, you should go to Jonathan Berry's talk this afternoon at 1:30, where he'll tell you about Hangouts, Hangout applications, and the power of the Hangout button as a way to connect with people who visit your web page. And of course, and those of you at home will miss this, if you want to know who Jonathan Berry is, he's over there, so you can see his face. At this point, I have a website. People can find it in search. They can choose to stay informed about it by following it on Google+. But how do they discover I have a Google+ page? Well, the way we do that is quite simple. We have something we call the Google+ badge. And what this does is gives you a little snippet of code you can put on your website, and people can choose to use that to follow your page. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You spend a lot of time and effort getting these people to come to your site. The last thing you want is a badge that takes them off your site. So what you'll see in our badge is that the user can follow your Google+ page without leaving your website. This is pretty cool. The general principles behind the badge and the way we want you to use it is the idea that you want to keep the people on your website. You want them to be able to say, this page is cool. You want to be able to surface who thinks your page is cool. So you can put little faces at the bottom of the badge. For everything we're doing in Google+, everything Julie's team is building, we've been building these config tools. The idea is that whilst we could give you a long, complicated manual telling you how to write correct code, it would be better to give you a config tool where you pick the options you want, and we say, here's the code. Now cut and paste it into your website. Those of you who've been following along with our adventures in developer experience will know that that's one of our principles. So as you can see here, you can basically say, I want to create a Google Plus badge for developer experience. In a recent change we made last week, one of many changes we make, we changed the drop-down so that now when you go there, because we know who you are, we just say, well, here are your pages. It's a small optimization, but it's the kind of thing we've been trying to do, trying to say, what if we made people the heart of this? Well, we wouldn't ask a person, please go off and find a list of your pages and then type the number in here. If we already know this, we can make this experience simpler, easier, better. So you pick your page, we generate the code for you. You'd say, do you want to, how wide do you want it? And for those of you who like the Blues Brothers, we have both kinds of Google Plus badges here. We have badges for people. So that's the badge for Jenny Murphy, one of my colleagues. And we have badges for, in that case, it looks like the Google Plus developers Google Plus page. As you can see, that's got 54,000 plus ones so far. But from that page, you can configure badges for you, badges for your website, and then you cut and paste the code. Speaking of the code, we're going to get to that in a moment, but first, you can configure the size, you can choose the faces that turn up. This is what it looks like on my website, where, as you can see, I am plugging my book. Please buy my book. It's available for free. This is what the code looks like. As you can see, there's not a lot of code. What you do is you take this chunk of code, you put it into the head of your document, and for those of you who are good at JavaScript, you'll see that what we're doing is we're in the line in your web page, we are creating a script tag, which is going to be loaded, and then that script tag is going to asynchronously walk your DOM and then find this G+ tag, and then replace it with the badge. So this means you can control where the badge will appear in your website, which means it can fit in with whatever you've already got. You get a choice of width, the theme, we've got light version, a dark version, and of course, we have a relic called publisher indication, which is how we tell that this website owns this Google Plus page, because there's a bidirectional link between them. So at this point, I have a rather nice website. People can find it. They can click on the badge, follow the Google Plus page for it, and they can keep informed about changes. But how do they tell other people that it's cool? How do they tell other people that the articles in it are cool? Well, last March, we put out the +1 button. This came about because we've seen that people trust recommendations from other people. They know whose taste they can trust. They know, for example, that if I recommend a camera to you, it'll almost certainly come from, it'll suddenly be something like this, and it'll be large and heavy and, hurt your hands after a while. However, if somebody else recommends a camera to you, it may be smaller, it may be a phone camera, but you know the people, and you can act accordingly. When people buy things like cameras or cars, they want recommendations from people they trust. But the time you are buying the device and the time the person is looking for the recommendation are separate. With the +1 button, we bring those two things together so that whilst you're doing your initial research, you +1 of things you think are good, then when other people who know you or who are following your Google Plus are searching for similar things, we'll show you the recommendation, the endorsement you gave to that. You can, of course, always +1 then share if you want to tell people immediately, I found a great camera shop. The +1 button has a config tool, like everything else we're doing. As you can see, you can control the width, you can specify if you want it to load asynchronously or not, you can choose if you want the markup to be HTML5 valid or not. Thanks to Gerwin for spotting that one. This is what it looks like on my website. As you can see, you +1, the snippet we talked about earlier, turns up there, you choose the circles you want to see it, you can have a little section of faces. The code is going to seem very, very familiar. It's the same snippet you've seen before, which is going to be put into your web page. It's going to then synchronously walk the code's going to be asynchronously loaded. It's going to walk the DOM because it's going to be looking for There's G+ tag. As you can see, you can control the formatting of the +1 button, but that's going to be replaced with the code for the +1 button. So I've got a great site. People come into it. They're choosing to follow the page associated with it. So I can tell them about cool new things. They've got a +1 button, so they can tell other people this is a great website. Now imagine my website had, I don't know, something controversial, like perhaps an article comparing Nikon versus Canon, or an article saying that maybe, you know, hats are awesome and you should really be wearing a hat. And you want to tell people about this, but you don't want to +1 this. You don't want people to think that you're, you know, pro hats. Or perhaps you've chosen Nikon over Canon. But you want to tell people, look at this guy, he's so wrong. So we need a way to share without endorsing. So we put together the share button. Like everything else we do, it has a config tool. This may sound familiar. You can control a variety of things about the theming, whether it's HTML5 valid or not. It looks very similar to the +1 button. We're building a set of tools that are internally consistent, that reuse aspects of each other, so that if you understand part of the system, you can use that understanding to learn the rest. The code. Tell me if this sounds familiar. There's a bit of JavaScript, which is going to be put into your web page. It's going to get loaded. It's going to asynchronously walk to DOM. And then it's going to find a G+ tag and replace it. As you can see, you can always hard-code a share button to talk to about a particular URL. But by default, it will load or point to the current website, the current page. You may remember this gentleman from last year. This is Timothy Jordan. If you want to learn more about how you can do interesting things with the Google Plus button, with other aspects of Google Plus, if you want to learn, for instance, how you can use the JavaScript callback in the +1 button to use with analytics tools, or other things, you should attend Timothy's talk tomorrow at 2:45, where he'll go into how you can get more with Google Plus. Now, my website, well, I like to think that my website isn't so much HTML5 as HTML 3.2. It's very simple. I'm a simple person. But imagine a world where I wasn't a simple person, and I had a website and it was latency sensitive, or it was written in Flash. And I was the kind of person who was good enough at design that I wanted control over every single pixel on my website. Well, I can't use the existing buttons because I give up control. So what you need is something else. What we built for you is a little thing we call URL Share Endpoint. Who here has used this? Okay, so this is cool. Basically, we have that special URL. It takes two parameters, HL for language, and a URL parameter. So what this does is you say, give me a share box pointing to that URL. And that's just a link. And you can basically put any image you want in front of that link. And because it's just a link, nothing gets loaded from Google. It loads, well, it's just a link, so it's instant. There's no worries about latency. Because it's just a link, it'll fit into your Flash website with no problems whatsoever. We give you an icon. If you want to use our icon, you can, of course, use your own. You can choose to serve the icon from us or from your own website if you're particularly sensitive about latency. But what we noticed was that a lot of people, they were just writing this code. They just wanted a button with a graphic served from Google, might as well save cost. And when you clicked on it, it popped up in a new window, and it had a share box in it. So we said, if everybody is doing the same thing, perhaps we should just give them the code. So we did. This is what we call the URL share link. If you're interested in what we've done when you start taking this idea that you can have URLs that perform actions, if you can start thinking about what happens when multiple sites have these kinds of endpoints and you can do server-to-server integration, you should go to Paul Kinlan's talk tomorrow at 11:45, where he'll talk to you about web intents and how things like our URL share link play a part in that. If you're interested in how all of these buttons load so quickly at the scale we are, if you think about it, we have billions of impressions a day. How do we do that? How do we make that fast? You should go and see John and Multi, who are talking at 5:15, and they'll tell you exactly how we do this. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that we only do the web. As you saw in Vic's talk this morning, we've crossed the point where we have more mobile traffic, more mobile usage than web usage. So if you go to tomorrow's talk at 1:30, Julia and Francis will tell you interesting things about Android and iOS development for Google+. You should really go there. But that's not all. Let's go back to my family for a moment. We've talked about all the things you can do with the Google+ platform, but they're not technical. So most of these details would have gone over their heads, and they would say, hold on, explain this to me in the context of a real-world shop. Pick something, real. Don't make something up, not abstract, concrete. And I would say, well, this is Le Monde. They're where I got this hat from. Beautiful shop, run by a little old couple. And as you can see from the review, I love this shop. I go there once a year and I buy a vintage hat and I buy a suit, but I only go there once a year. So if anything interesting happens at that shop during that year, I miss it. If they have a sale, I miss it. They're not the kind of people who are going to run a mailing list. They want something simple, easy to understand, easy to use, where Google does the heavy lifting for them. And because they're an old-fashioned kind of shop, they sell vintage outfits, they want something simple. So they also think of their metrics very differently to developers. They're not thinking in terms of increasing traffic and increasing engagement. They're thinking in terms of how do we get more customers through the door of our shop? How do we get more business so that when the customer comes in, they come back? How do they do that? How do they go to a world where they've got more customers who are happier and thus more business? And how do they go from people that come into their shops regularly to a community of people? Well, this is why we did Google+ Local, because now this is still in a very early form, and we have a small number of trusted testers who've got the fully integrated experience. But what those people get is a Google+ page for their particular shop, their particular business. And you can follow that page, and you can see who else likes to follow that page, and you can engage in discussions with the page and with the other people, and you can discover that you have things in common. You can connect with those other people, in my case, around my love of hats. Now, I'm going to finish up, and I'm going to finish off with two quotes. One is from Leo Ruston. You probably have never heard of him. Anybody heard of Leo Ruston? Okay, anybody heard of Margaret Mead? Hooray! So he's her brother-in-law. He also wrote lots of books, but that's his biggest claim to fame. And one of the things he talks about is this idea about why do we share? At Google+, we believe it's important to share the right things with the right people. It should be controlled sharing. And that's because you want to be in control of who understands you. You want to choose who you want to have a better understanding of. You want to choose your community. So if you're a Google+ page, you're building a community, you want to have some control over that. But in the wider context of Google, in the wider context of the world where we're thinking about upgrading the Google experience, I want to finish with this quote from Clay Shirky. And he talks about how important it is to connect with other people, not just with information. So when we talk about Google and our mission to give everybody access to information, we've got to think beyond and above, and we've got to start saying, how do we upgrade Google? How do we upgrade the Google experience so that it's about connecting and sharing with people? And that includes, of course, my family. Thank you very much. So I think we have a few minutes for questions. Does anybody have any questions? If so, please use the microphones there and there. I'll try to repeat them for the people watching the live stream. Oh, and by the way, hello, London. Any questions? Oh, we have one question at the back.
Yes. Hi. How do you see the development of Google Plus for enterprises? There is a lot of needs. There is a lot of businesses that have gone up into Google Apps, and those businesses are getting bigger and bigger. And most of my customers, we do implement Google Apps, are asking, we need a sort of Google Plus environment, but for the company. And I mean social, but for the company.
So the question was, how do we see the development of Google Plus for the enterprise? When we built Google Plus, we started with the enterprise we know best, Google. We have 30,000 employees, maybe more nowadays. And we have a Google Plus instance we run for ourselves. We put out Google Plus for Enterprise a few months ago, and it's seen incredible uptake as companies have realized that they can actually bring the benefits of Google Plus within their company. They can connect people within the company to each other around things beyond just the department. And all the features we're rolling out here, those are also rolling out for enterprises. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised as we keep working and adding new features. I think we're up to about a feature a day now.
I think about a feature a day, that's right.
And most of those features are rolling out to enterprise as well. Obviously, there are more complications for enterprise, but given that I have 30,000 people who know where I sit, who want these features, I think you'll be seeing many more enterprise features rolling out for Google Plus as time goes on. I believe there was a gentleman there with a question.
Yeah, I have a curiosity. At the beginning, you showed us how to create the snippets so we can see our picture or something and description and the search results. How long does it take for Google to recognize that my website has those snippets?
So the question was, how long does it take for Google to recognize that my site has a new snippet?
Is it real time or does it need to wait? I don't know.
So what we have in Google is we have a crawler, and it crawls your site based on a lot of signals, including things like, do you have a sitemap? How often does your site change? Things like that. So it's not guaranteed. There are things you can do within Webmaster Tools that can accelerate the time it'll be crawled, but it's not guaranteed. So you can go and look on the Google, if you look on the Rich Snippets site, there's information about things like Webmaster Tools and sitemaps and how you can use those to accelerate your recrawl rate. But that's all we can really tell you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I will say that if you do use rich snippets, then as soon as people start sharing or plus oneing from your site, then that will immediately work with Google+. So that is real-time guaranteed.
We created a Google Plus local page. I guess
Thank you.
Got migrated over for us. And the ability to maintain hours there is helpful. One of the things I was wondering is there an ability to automatically push and update the hours for that page from somewhere? Is there a writable API for that purpose? Because we don't want to have to maintain the hours in 5 different web pages and a couple of different applications. We'd like to be able to push it one spot and then get it pulled.
So the question is, if I have a Google Plus local page, is there a programmatic way to update the opening hours for that page?
Correct.
So when we announced Google Plus Local, we said that it was part of a migration of the 80 million place pages into Google Plus. And that as part of that, we would start adding other features you were used to in place pages as time goes on. So I think that's your answer. We're going to give you a lot of the functionality you've seen in place pages. Remember, the goal is to upgrade Google. So that includes things like place pages. And that is coming, but I can't tell you when.
Thank you.
I think we have a question at the back.
My question is about how different types of content perform on Google. A lot of focus is on events and photos. My specific question is about the video experience, sharing video content from different sites and popular shows, et cetera, if there's any plans.
Do you want to take this?
I can tell you anecdotally.
You should probably repeat the question for the
Sorry, thank you. So the question was about how different content performs on Google Plus in terms of engagement. What we've seen is that multimedia content does particularly well. So videos, images, links with photos associated with them are the ones that get the most engagement. So if you can make the visual representation in the stream engaging, then it is much more likely to get higher levels of engagement from the users.
I will add one thing. Gerwin, who's sitting in the front here, built a tool that actually shows you what times you should post to reach the most members of the audience. It's really cool, and he built it on top of the API. If there are no more questions, then I think we should all go to lunch. Thank you very much. You've been wonderful.